Hi and welcome to Orbit. I almost didn't review this smartphone and it would have been such a shame because it is actually in some ways better than the Galaxy S23 Ultra or the iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is the Honor Magic 5 Pro and it is everything we loved about Huawei, but in better. This device feels very robust. This is largely due to the frame, which looks like it's made out of polished stainless steel, but it's actually made out of aluminium. The device is IP68 water resistant, that is 30 minutes in a depth of 1.5 meters. No one could really tell me what kind of glass was used. I hope it's Huawei's Conlan glass, but it's probably Gorilla Glass Victus or even Gorilla Glass 5. The black model is glossy and collects fingerprints like crazy. The green one is matte, but it is described as slippery by some reviewers. The camera element is supposed to remind you of a black hole because the light bends around it, and yes, it definitely attracts attention. It's not my cup of tea though. The transition is a little bit too sharp and it's overall too lush. Also lush is the display. It's 6.8 inches large with OLED and 120 Hz. The typical brightness is extremely high at 1300 nits and the peak brightness is even 1800 nits. The resolution is somewhere between Full HD Plus and Quad HD Plus. This saves battery on the one hand and is quite sharp with 460 ppi. The bezel are very thin all around and the sides are slightly curved. There's a pill-shaped hole on the top left. In there is a 3D face recognition and a selfie camera. Exactly the same tech as in the iPhone 14 Pro, but only less than half the size. My face was always recognized super fast and reliable. You can log even into banking apps without any problems, which is not possible with 2D face recognition. But there's also a fingerprint sensor as a backup, and I like that. On the inside there is the latest and greatest hardware, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. At a minimum 512 GB of UFS 4.0 storage and 12 GB of RAM. That leaves nothing to be desired. Android 13 runs smoothly, fast and stable. Honor made some quite generous, lovely animations. I even wish that they were a little bit shorter. Visually, this has nothing to do with Android anymore. The Huawei or Honor software have always been visually oriented towards iOS, just in a less beautiful way. And that is how it is now again. It's really not my case with the icon shape that is partially a rounded square and partially freeform. And it really bothers me that swiping down on the home screen does not open the notification bar like it does on every other smartphone. In general, the notification system and the quick settings are a downgrade compared to pure Android. I know many people like the Huawei software, but I was never one of them. But there are two things that I actually liked quite a lot. First of all, there are all the Google services on this phone. Every service works just fine and there will be Android updates up to Android 16. I think that's okay, but how fast those updates will come, that's on another page. Second, you can not only switch between 120 and 60 Hz, you can also use 90 Hz, and that's a great compromise to save on battery. Speaking of battery, 5100 mAh are more than the competition and my runtime reflected that. In the evening, with 3.5 hours of display use, I still had 50% of battery left. The following day it was even 4 hours 15 with the same battery state. So at the end, I think 7 to 9 hours of display use are totally possible, and that is incredibly good. Probably the best battery life I have seen in the last couple of years. In China there's a version of this phone with an even larger 5450 mAh battery because of a higher energy density. That's super impressive and I would have loved to see that also in Europe and the US. It fully recharges in just under 45 minutes with the included 66 watt power supply. That is good, but the competition is almost twice as fast. Wireless charging is crazy fast though with 50 watts. You have already guessed it, the focus of the Honor Magic 5 Pro is very much on its camera. It was ranked the #1 by DxO for a while and only surpassed by 1 point with the Oppo Find X6 Pro, which will probably never come to Europe. Honor relies on 3 50 megapixel cameras. The main sensor is just shy of 1 inch. 1 to 1.12 inch to be exact. This is quite a bit larger than what's in a Galaxy S23 Ultra, iPhone 14 Pro or even Pixel 7 Pro. And in fact, I think it was a smart move on Honor's part to choose a sensor that is slightly smaller than 1 inch because it allows them to open up the aperture to f1.6 and make a closer focusing possible. This allows for a beautiful natural bokeh. Check it out here in the comparison to a Xiaomi 13 Pro. I was blown away by how accurate the skin tones were captured even in difficult situations. Color reproduction and sharpness are slightly exaggerated, but nothing that would bother me. Because of it, the photos look vibrant and impressive. The rumor says that the Pixel 8 Pro will use the same main camera, and from everything I have seen with this phone, I will love that camera and the Pixel even more. The telephoto camera has a 3.5 times zoom and an f3 aperture. The photos look really good. A ton of background blur because the close focus is very good. I find it silly that Honor advertises an 100x zoom. The pictures look like watercolor paintings. 10x on the other hand is amazingly detailed. The zoom camera is clearly superior to the one in the iPhone, Galaxy S23 or all Motorola devices. The ultra-wide angle also has an autofocus and macro mode. The field of view is nice and wide. Color is compared to the other focal lengths, and thanks to the f2 aperture, photos look okay even in mixed lighting. Videos are possible on all three lenses in 4K and 30 fps. 8K or 4K 120 fps is not supported, which I always find is a shame. In return, the videos also have a nice background blur, which looks professional. The selfie camera has a very wide field of view and over sharpens skin and hair a bit, but otherwise it has a vivid color reproduction. Conclusion: the price of this phone is 1,200 euros, and that is quite high. But when you think about it, it is cheaper than Samsung, Apple and Xiaomi and has more tech in it, so it's kind of justified. And the camera is awesome, battery life, display performance, everything is great. But I personally don't like the design of the hardware and the software, and so it will not be my next daily, but it is such an awesome phone and I think it's the comeback of Huawei. I mean, Honor.